Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today's a bit of a different video, and what this video is going to be is my 2022 anticipated NetGalley reads for the first part of this year. So between now and June, I hope to read all of these books, and then around the middle of the year, I will do another batch of books that are anticipated reads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate timestamps for each book I discuss in this video. And I'm going to put the timestamp in the description box below so that if a title doesn't appeal to you or a cover doesn't appeal to you, you can just look down in the description and see the timestamp and just jump ahead to what you might want to hear about. Now, when I get my books from NetGalley, what I usually get, well, what I first get is anything that's connected to a blog tour. So I might even start making videos about upcoming blog tours. So those are the first batch of books that I get. The second books that I choose are by authors that I enjoy, and you're going to see the names of a couple of those authors in this video. The third area in which I select books is if it's connected to a series that I have started or have wanting to keep up with. Like, let's say I've read 20 books and the 21st book is out. Or let's say that there's 26 books out, but I'm only on book 13. I'll still get that newest book and have it in my queue for when I'm caught up. And last but not least is recommendations. That's another area. So usually those are the 4 criteria that I use to get books. I don't get a book based on its cover, although I do occasionally will get a book based on the cover and the description, but I try to stay within those parameters that I just mentioned. So I wanted to come up with 20 books that I was looking forward to reading in the first half of this year. It doesn't mean I'm going to just read 20 books. In fact, I read 2 this month, and I'm more than 50% with a third book, and I'm 10% with a fourth book. These are just anticipated reads that aren't necessarily connected. I don't think, maybe a couple of these are connected to blog tours, but these are just anticipated books that I have in my NetGalley queue. So what I thought I would do is I would tell you about each book, pop up the book cover. I'll put it, it's going to go up on that side. I'll pop up the book cover, and I'm going to read the description of these books, and I'm also going to tell you the publication date. So that's what you're going to get in this video. So the first book, and probably the most anticipated book that I have, is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Now, I have read several books of Riley Sager's, and there's no way that I could have one of his books come out that I don't jump at. I didn't get it right away after I requested it, so I was a little worried that I might not get it, but it did come through as an approval. And what do I mean it came through as an approval? Well, you have NetGalley, which is a website. I'm trying to find my phone so I can show you. So if you go to NetGalley as a reader or reviewer, you will see there's page after page of books that are available. As a matter of fact, I see a book right there. And it's not even on my list, so it must have just came up. And that's The Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda. I love Megan Miranda, but we won't talk about that because I didn't put it in my queue. I just saw it. So, first book, like I said, is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I have read all of Riley Sager's books up until now, so quite naturally I want to read this one. And like I said, I'm going to just give you the description of each book. It won't take too long. And this says the New York Times bestselling author of Final Girls and Survive the Night, parenthesis, a master of the twist and turn, is back with his most unexpected thriller yet. Be careful what you, that was a quote by Rolling Stone. Here is the summary. Be careful what you watch for. Casey Fletcher, a recently widowed actress trying to escape a streak of bad press, has retreated to the peace and quiet of her family's lake house in Vermont. So it's based on New England, where I live. Armed with a pair of binoculars and several bottles of bourbon, she passes the time watching Tom and Catherine Royce, the glamorous couple living in the house across the lake. Therefore, the name of the book. They make for good viewing. A tech innovator, Tom is powerful, and a former model, Catherine is gorgeous. One day, I was looking at a notification. One day on the lake, Casey saves Catherine from drowning, and the two strike up a budding friendship. But the more they get to know each other, and the longer Casey watches, it becomes clear that Catherine and Tom's marriage isn't as perfect as it appears. When Catherine suddenly vanishes, Casey immediately suspects Tom of foul play. What she doesn't realize is that there's more to the story than meets the eye, and that shocking secret can lurk beneath the most placid of surfaces. And then the summary paragraph says, packed with sharp characters, psychological suspense, and gasp-worthy plot twists, Riley Sager's The House Across the Lake is the ultimate escapist read. No lake house required. So that's the first book that I want to read, and I knew my cat was going to come in here. The next book I have is by Kerrigan, Byrne. And I read the first book, and I should have looked up the name of the first book, but this is the second book in a series that deals with the real-life crimes of Jack the Ripper. So this is called A Treacherous Trade, and this is by Kerrigan, Byrne. Now, Kerrigan, Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E. Now, I read the first book in the series, and like I said, I should have looked up the first book, but I really cannot wait to read this one. By the way, backtracking, Riley Sager's book comes out June 21st, okay? And I think I will pop down the date of the release with a screenshot. So this book by Kerrigan, Byrne comes out March 8th, so it'll be out in a few days, which means I will be reading this in a few days. And let me tell you about this book. It starts off, forgive me, for I have sinned, and nothing interrupts a good confession like a murder. Fiona Mahoney stands in the ashes of her hopes facing her tempting adversary, Inspector Grayson Croft. Her sins are about to spill from her lips when he says the one thing that could dispel all thoughts of revelation or redemption. Someone is leaving the corpses of London's cobbled streets, and a name is being whispered in the fearful shadows. The name against which Fiona would sell her very soul for vengeance, Jack the Ripper. Old enemies and new friends join Fiona as she chases a relentless evil through the streets of Victorian London. She'll pull every contact in her arsenal, including Oscar Wilde, Arthur Conan Doyle, Inspector Aberline, the Hammer, a charismatic gangster, the Blade, an enigmatic assassin, and of course, Jack. That book, I just can't wait to read it. I just can't wait. I love Kerrigan, Byrne. I probably have read 8 of her books so far. Then the next most anticipated book I have, and I guess I'm to this point, I'm giving these books to you in order of anticipation. This is by Jasmine Guillory. Now, this book will be out May 3rd, and the description of this book is A Tale as Old as Time for a New Generation. Isabel is completely lost. When she first began her career in publishing right out of college, she did not expect to be 25, living at home, still an editorial assistant, and the only black employee at her publishing house. Overworked and underpaid, constantly torn between speaking up or stifling herself, Izzy thinks there must be more to this publishing life. So when she overhears her boss complaining about a beastly high-profile author who has failed to deliver his long-awaited manuscript, Isabel sees an opportunity to finally get the promotion she deserves. All she has to do is go to the author's Santa Barbara mansion and give him a quick pep talk or 3. How hard could it be? But Izzy quickly finds out that she's in over her head. Bo Towers is not some celebrity lightweight writing a tell-all memoir. He is jaded and withdrawn, and it turns out just as lost as Izzy is. But despite his standoffishness, Izzy needs Bo to deliver, and with her encouragement, his story begins to spill out onto the page. They soon discover they have more in common than either of them expected, and as their deadline nears, Izzy and Bo begin to realize that there may be something there that wasn't there before. And then it summarizes with best-selling author Jasmine Guillory's reimagining of a beloved fairy tale in a romantic triumph of love and acceptance is learning that sometimes truly a person, you truly have to know a person to truly know a person, you have to read between the lines. The reason I was stumbling on that is because I'm like, oh, Beauty and the Beast. So this is a modern day Beauty and the Beast. That's why I couldn't read that last paragraph, because I was putting that around in my mind. So I will go on to Local Gone Missing by Fiona Barton. This comes out June 14th, and I have read maybe just 3 books by her, but I do enjoy her books, so I was glad to grab this. The description reads, Detective Elise King investigates a man's disappearance in a seaside town where the locals and weekenders are at odds with each other in this rich and captivating new novel from the New York Times bestselling author of The Widow, which I did read The Widow. Elise King is a successful and ambitious detective, or she was before medical leave left her unsure if she'd ever return to work. She now spends most days watching growing tensions in her small seaside town of Ebbing, the weekenders renovating old bungalows into luxury homes and the locals resentful of the changes. Elise can only guess what really happens behind closed doors, but Dee Eastwood, her house cleaner, often knows. She's an invisible presence in many of the houses in town, but she sees and hears everything. So obviously this is a psychological thriller. The conflicts boil over when a newcomer wants to put the town on the map with a giant music festival and 2 teenagers overdose on drugs. When a man disappears in the first night of the festival, Elise is drawn back into her detective work and starts digging for answers. Ebbing is a small town, but it's full of secrets and hidden connections that run deeper and darker than Elise could ever have imagined. So you see why I want to read that one. Again, it comes out in June. The next book that I have here, if I could separate the pages, is Allison Brennan's The Wrong Victim. Now, I believe I do have this for a blog tour in April, so I will be reading this one soon. And this one will be released on April 26th. And she's another author where I have read several of her books. And the description reads, a bomb explodes on a sunset charter cruise outside of Friday Harbor at the height of the tourist season and kills everyone on board. Now this fishing and boating community is in shock and asking who would commit such a heinous crime. The largest act of mass murder in the history of the San Juan Highlands. So that would be Puerto Rico. Forensic profilers know there are 2 types of domestic terrorists. Those who use violence to instill fear for political purposes, but stop at murder because it detracts from the cause, and those who crave attention and are willing to maim and murder for their own agenda. Accused of putting profits before people after leaking fuel that caused a massive fish kill, the West End Charter Company may itself have been the target. But as Special Agent Matt Costa, Detective Kara Quinn, and the rest of the FBI team begin their investigation, they discover that plenty of people might have wanted someone dead on that yacht. Now they must track down who is responsible and stop them before they strike again. That is going to be a good book. The next book I want to read is, again, I think most of the books actually are going to be authors that I've already read. And that's the case with this one, which is Christina Dodd's Point Last Seen. Now, this book will be released. I cut off the release date, so I will look. It will just take me 1 second. Point last. This book will be released on June 21st. Sorry for cutting that date off. Okay, so the description is, well, it starts off, the catch paragraph is, perfect for fans of Lisa Jewell, Karen Slaughter, and Sandra Brown. Love all three of those authors. New York Times bestselling author Christina Dodd's all-new thriller, Point Last Scene, will have readers keeping the lights on all night. Definitely a psychological thriller. Life Last Scene. When you've already died, there should be nothing left to fear. When Adam Ramsdale pulls Ellie's half-frozen body from the surf on the lonely California beach, she has no memory of what her full name is and how she got those bruises ringing her throat. Girl Last Scene. Elle finds refuge in Adam's home on the edge of Gothic, a remote village located between the steep, lonely mountains and the raging Pacific Ocean. As flashes of her memory return, Elle faces a terrible truth. Buried in her mind lurks a secret so dark it could get her killed. Point Last Scene. Everyone in Gothic seems to hide a dark past. Even Adam knows more than he will admit. Until Elle can unravel the truth, she doesn't know who to trust, when to run, and who else might be hurt when the killer who stalks her nightmares appears to finish what he started. Yeah, it's going to be good. June 21st for that one. The next one looks like it's a romance. Yep, it is. It's Starry-Eyed Love by Helena Hunting. Now, I look at her books all the time, but I don't think I've read her, and if I did, I've only read one. This reads, charming. By the way, this will be out May 10th. Charming, hilarious, and emotional. Starry-Eyed Love is Helena Hunting at her very best. Having just broken up with her boyfriend, London Spark is not in the mood to be hit on, especially not when she's out celebrating her single status with her sisters. So, when a very attractive man pays for their drinks and then slips her his number, she passes it right back to him with thanks, but no thanks. As the business administrator of their family's event hotel, the Spark House, London has more important things to worry about, like bringing in new clientele. As luck would have it, a multi-million-dollar company calls a few months later, asking for a meeting to discuss a potential partnership, and London is eager to prove to her sisters and herself that she can land this deal. Just when she thinks she has nailed her presentation, the company's CEO, Jackson Holt, walks in and inserts himself into the meeting. Not only that, but he also happens to be the same guy that she turned down at the bar a few months ago. As they begin to spend more time together, their working relationship blossoms into something more. It isn't until their professional entanglements are finally over that London and Jackson are finally ready to take the next step in their relationship. But between Jackson's secretive past and London's struggle with her sisters, London must question where she really stands, not just with Jackson, but with the Spark House too. So that looks like it's going to be a good read. These pages are very staticky, so they won't separate. The next book I have is Neruda on the Park by Cleyvis, Natera, and I could be very, very wrong on the pronunciation of both of her names. Now, this book comes out May 17th, and it's from Random House Publishing, and it is a debut novel. And you can look at the cover and see that it's also a multicultural literary fiction, women's fiction. Those are all the genres. So this is an exhilarating debut novel following members of a Dominican family in New York City who take radically different paths when faced with encroaching gentrification. Strikes all the right notes, captivating characters, lyrical language, and a storyline that captures your imagination and refuses to let go. An unforgettable debut. That quote is by Taraji Jones, who is the author of An American Marriage, which I read 2 years ago. Now, one of the most anticipated books of 2022. That quote is from The Rumpus, Electric Lit, The Millions, and Lit Hub. So that gives you a lot of promise for this book. The summary is, the Guerreros have lived in Northrop Park, a predominantly Dominican part of New York City, for 20 years. When demolition begins on a neighboring tenement, Eusebia, an elder of the community, takes matters into her own hands by devising an increasingly dangerous series of schemes to stop construction of the luxury condos. Meanwhile, Eusebia's daughter, Luz, a rising associate at a top Manhattan law firm who strives to live in the bougie lifestyle her parents worked hard to give her, becomes distracted by a sweltering romance with the handsome white developer at the company her mother so vehemently opposes. As Luz's father, Vladimir, secretly designs their retirement home in the Dominican Republic, mother and daughter collide, ramping up tensions in Northrop Park, racing towards a near-fatal climax. And then the summary is a beautifully layered portrait of family, friendship, and ambition. Neruda on the Park weaves a rich and vivid tapestry of community as well as the sacrifices we make to what we love most, in announcing Cleyvis Natera as an electrifying new voice. Goodness gracious. That doesn't come out till May 17th, but I tell you, I'll read it long before that. The next book I have is Stay Awake by Megan Goldin. Now, I have read maybe 3 or 4 of her books, so I stand by her as a great author. This book doesn't come out until August 9th, and I should have been giving you the publishers, but this is a St. Martin's Press. Now, this says, in the vein of S.J. Watson's Before I Go to Sleep and Christopher Nolan's cult classic Memento, Megan Goldin's Stay Awake is an electrifying novel that plays with memory and murder. Liv Reese wakes up in the back of a taxi with no idea where she is or how she got there. So what is the other book? Point Last Seen was about a woman with amnesia, and this one is as well. I have weird notification. This is by like I said, a woman with amnesia. So let me start that over. Liv Reese wakes up in the back of a taxi with no idea where she is or how she got there. When she's dropped off at the door of her brownstone, a stranger answers. A stranger who now lives in her apartment and forces her out in the cold. She reaches for her phone to call for help, only to discover it's missing. In its place is a blood-stained knife. That's when she sees that her hands are covered in black pen scribbled messages like graffiti on her skin, and it says, "Stay awake." 2 years ago, Liv was living with her best friend, dating a new man, and thriving as a successful writer for a trendy magazine. Now she's lost and disoriented in New York City that looks nothing like what she remembers. Catching a glimpse of the local news, she's horrified to see reports of a crime scene where the victim's blood has been used to scrawl a message across a window. The same message that's inked on her hands. Stay awake. What did she do last night? And why does she remember nothing from the past 2 years? Liv finds herself on the run for a crime she doesn't remember committing as she tries to piece together the fragments of her life. But there's someone who does know exactly what she did, and they'll do anything to try to make her forget permanently. This is a complex thriller that unfolds at breakneck speed. Stay Awake will keep you up all night. So didn't Allison Brennan's The Wrong Victim also said it will keep you up all night? This one is different for me. I think I've read one book like this. Here's the cat again. I think I have read one book like this in my whole time of reading. And I'm going to give you the info, and then you see if you can see what the difference is as far as the genre. I'll tell you that it's called, what is it? A Rip Through Time by Kelley Armstrong. It comes out May 31st, and it's a St. Martin's Press from the Minotaur imprint, which means I will be getting this book in print as well. And it says, a great read, quoted by Charmaine Harris. Now, in this series debut, I love series. I'm a series fanatic. In the series debut from New York Times bestselling author Kelley Armstrong, a modern-day homicide detective finds herself in Victorian Scotland in an unfamiliar body with a killer on the loose. Okay, so let's ruminate over that for a second. She's a modern-day homicide detective who finds herself in a different body in Victorian Scotland. So you getting it? Yes, it's time travel. Never read this genre. Here we have it. May 20th, 2019. Homicide detective Mallory is in Edinburgh to be with her dying grandmother. While out on a jog one evening, Mallory hears a woman in distress. She's drawn to an alley where she's attacked and loses consciousness. May 20th, 1869. Housemaid Catriona Mitchell has been enjoying a half-day off, only to be discovered that night in a lane where she'd been strangled and left for dead. Exactly 150 years before Mallory was strangled in the same spot. When Mallory wakes up in Catriona's body in 1869, she must put aside her shock and adjust quickly to reality. Life as a housemaid to an undertaker in Victorian Scotland. She soon discovers that her boss, Dr. Gray, also moonlights as a medical examiner and has just taken on an intriguing case, the strangulation of a young man similar to the attack on herself. Her only hope is that catching the murderer can lead her back to her modern life before it's too late. So this summarizes with Outlander meets the alienness in Kelley Armstrong's A Rip Through Time, the first book in this utterly compelling series, mixing romance, mystery, and fantasy with thrilling results. Gotta read that one. Again, that comes out May 31st, and I don't think I'll be able to last until May to read that one. The next book that looks really good is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I think I've only read one, maybe two books by her, but I'm looking forward to this one. This one is already out. It came out February 22nd, so I'll get to it, and I can get to it. This says, as you patently await season 2 of Only Murders in the Building, cozy up with Lucy Foley's latest whodunit by Parade. So if Only in the Murders is possibly the first book in this series, I will grab it and read it before I read this one. That's what it sounds like. Exceedingly clever is a quote by Booklist. And then the summary starts, from New York Times bestselling author of The Guest List, which I did read, comes a new locked room mystery set in a Paris apartment building in which every resident has something to hide. Jess needs a fresh start. She's broken alone and she's just left her job under idea. This reminds me, oh my goodness. There's a book I read that this really reminds me of it. But anyway, Jess needs a fresh start. She's broken alone and she just left her job under less than ideal circumstances. Her half-brother Ben didn't sound thrilled when she asked if she could crash with him for a bit. But he didn't say no, and surely everything will look better from Paris. Only when she shows up to find a very nice apartment, could Ben have really afforded this? He's not there. The longer Ben stays missing, the more Jess begins to dig into her brother's situation, and the more questions she has. Ben's neighbors are an eclectic bunch, and not particularly friendly. Jess may have come to Paris to escape her past, but it's starting to look like it's Ben's future that's in question. The socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. I'm so frustrated because I read a book. It'll come to me later, but there's another book that this reminds me very much of. The next book I have is something that I'm really excited to read. I just have to get the name of it. It's an Impossible Imposter by Veronica. Okay, let's start this over. The next book that I'm excited to read is An Impossible Imposter by Deanna Raybourn. I believe it's book number 6 in the Deanna Raybourn's, Veronica Speedwell series. I read all 5 last year. As a matter of fact, I binge read them one after the other. So this one is already out. It came out February 15th. I just haven't had time to read it. But this is going to be good because I love this series. It says, while investigating a man claiming to be the long-lost heir to a noble family, Veronica Speedwell gets the surprise of her life in this new adventure from New York Times best-selling and Edgar Award-nominated author Deanna Raybourn. London, 1889, Veronica Speedwell and her natural historian Beau Stoker are summoned by Sir Hugo Montgomery, head of Special Branch. He has a personal request on behalf of his goddaughter, Euphemia Hathaway. After years of traveling the world, her eldest brother, Jonathan, heir to Hathaway Hall, was believed to have been killed in the catastrophic eruption of a Krakatoa a few years before. But now a man matching Jonathan's description and carrying his possessions has arrived at Hathaway Hall with no memory of his identity or where he has been. Could this truly be Jonathan back from the dead, or is he a devious imposter? Determined to gain ownership over the family's most valuable possessions, a legendary purveyor of priceless Rajasthani's jewels. Sorry for that tongue twister. It's a delicate situation and Veronica is Sir Hugo's only hope. Veronica and Stoker agreed to go to Hathaway Hall to covertly investigate the mysterious amnesiac. Veronica is soon shocked to find herself face to face with a ghost from her past. To help Sir Hugo discover the truth, she must open doors to her own history that she long believed to be shut for good. Okay, we're going to continue. And this one here is Night Shift by Alex Finlay. Now, I do have the print copy that's in the other room, but I don't have it in front of me. This is by St. Martin's Press, and the imprint is Minotaur, which is why I have a print copy of it. This just came out on March 1st, so I've got to hurry up and get this one read. This says, from the author of the breakout thriller Every Last Fear comes Alex Finlay's electrifying new novel, The Night Shift, about a pair of small-town murderers 15 years apart and the ties that bind them. A library read selection, best book voted by librarians for March of 2022. It's also one of the most anticipated books of 2022. The night was expected to bring tragedy. So begins one of the most highly anticipated thrillers in recent years. It's New Year's Eve in 1999. Y2K is expected to end in chaos, planes falling from the sky, elevators plunging to earth, world markets collapsing, a digital apocalypse. None of that happens. But at a blockbuster video in New York, Jersey, 4 teenagers working late at the store are attacked. Only one inexplicably survives. Police quickly identify a suspect, the boyfriend of one of the victims, who flees and is never seen again. 15 years later, more teenage employees are attacked at an ice cream store in the same town, and again, only one makes it out alive. In the aftermath of the latest crime, 3 lives intersect. The lone survivor of the blockbuster massacre, who's forced to relive the horrors of her tragedy, the brother of the fugitive accused, who's convinced the police have the wrong suspect, and FBI agent Sarah Keller, who must delve into the secrets of both nights, stirring up memories of teen love and lies to uncover the truth about the murders on the night shift. Twisty, poignant, and redemptive, The Night Shift is a story about the legacy of trauma and how the broken can come out on the other side, and it solidifies Finlay as one of the leading voices in the new world of thrillers. And you see why I want to read Night Shift? Okay, only a few more left. The next book I have is Black Cake, and this is by Charmaine Wilkerson. Now, this book, it looks like it's another one that I cut off the date, so we're just going to Google the date. Black Cake. Black Cake, I believe, is already out. Yes, it came out February 1st. I was pretty sure it was already out. Okay, so this is, I'm going to read you some quotes. The first one is New York Times bestseller, New York Times Editor's Choice, and read with Jenna Book Club as featured on Today. Another debut author, because it says here, in this moving debut novel, two estranged siblings deal with their mother's death and her hidden past, a journey of discovery that takes them from the Caribbean to London to California and ends with her famous Black Cake. At turns delightfully juicy and then stunningly wise, Black Cake is a winner. That's by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and The Daisy Jones and the Six. It's another one of the most anticipated books of 2022. And now we're going to read the summary. In development as a Hulu series. I did not know this was being developed as a Hulu series. And the producer will be Marissa Jo Serrar and Oprah Winfrey and Capital Entertainment. So, we can't choose what we inherit, but can we choose who we become? In present-day California, Eleanor Bennett's death leaves behind a puzzling inheritance for her two children, Byron and Benny, a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe with a long history and a voice recording in her message. Eleanor shares a tumultuous story about a headstrong young swimmer who escapes her island home under suspicion of murder. The heartbreaking tale unfolds the secrets she still holds back and the mystery of a long-lost child, challenge everything the siblings thought they knew about their lineage and themselves. Can Byron and Benny reclaim their once close relationship, piece together Eleanor's true history, and fulfill her final request to share the black cake when the time is right? Will their mother's revelations bring them back together or leave them feeling more lost than ever? So again, it talks about the author. Charmaine Wilkerson's debut novel is a story of how the inheritance of betrayals, secrets, memories, and even names can shape relationships and history. Deeply evocative and beautifully written, Black Cake is an extraordinary journey through the life of a family changed forever by the choice of its matriarch. Gotta read this one. Actually, I think this is going to be another one that I read very, very soon. Okay, what is next? Sally Hepworth, I believe. Yes, this is the younger wife. I need to look over my notes better because this is another one where I have lost the date of release. I think this one is already out too, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, April 5th. So it'll be out in a month. Okay, so what is this about Sally Hepworth's book? And yes, I've read other books by her. This says, new from the author of The Good Sister, the breakout New York Times bestseller and stunningly clever thriller, comes Sally Hepworth's latest novel of domestic suspense about the tangled vines of family secrets. And then Kate Morton, and I read something by Kate Morton, the watchmaker's daughter, I believe. But anyway, Kate Morton says, smart, suspenseful, brimming with secrets, this is Sally Hepworth at her unputdownable best. Okay, The Husband. A heart surgeon at the top of his field. Stephen Ashton is getting married again, but first he must divorce his current wife, even though she can no longer speak for herself. The daughters. Tully and Rachel Aston look upon their father's fiancée, Heather, as nothing but an interloper. Heather is younger than both of them. Clearly, she's after their father's money. The former wife. With their mother in a precarious position, Tully and Rachel are determined to get to the truth about their family secrets, the new wife closing in, and who their father really is. The younger wife. Heather has secrets of her own. Will getting to the truth unleash the most dangerous impulses in all of them? And then there's more praise for this book. So that looks really good. April 5th for that one. The next book I want to read is by Mary Burton, and it's The Lies I Told. This one comes out August 2nd. And New York Times bestselling author Mary Burton writes a book that's for a woman obsessed and a killer in her shadow. Remembering the past becomes a mind game and a novel of psychological suspense. Now, twin sisters Marissa and Claire Stockton were 16 years old when Claire's body was found in the Virginia James River. No arrests were made. 14 years later, Marissa's friends and dedicated career... Let me read this again. 14 years later, Marissa's friends and dedicated career as a photographer helped her to cope with the open wound of her past. But Marissa still feels the hurt, and the unsolved murder isn't the only thing haunting her. A recent car crash has erased 10 days of Marissa's memories, a black hole leading up to the accident that's left her disoriented. Every text and phone call from the crucial missing time has vanished, along with her phone. A photograph that she took of the river has disappeared. A new neighbor Marissa believes she knows introduces herself as if he were a stranger. And then there's the growing fear of her near-fatal accident that was no accident at all. As dreams of Claire and nightmares of the crash begin to converge, so do two disturbing puzzles 14 years apart. So putting the pieces together could be fatal. As she struggles to remember everything, Marissa closes in on a killer without realizing that he's already closing in on her. Love that summary. I think I just have a couple left. The next one is by Farah Heron, and this is, I believe it's a romance. It's a multicultural romance. And did I print the cover for this one? Okay, I have to get the cover. This one is Kamila Knows Best, and I just have to get the cover for this video. And it says that Jane Austen's Emma goes Bollywood in this delightful retelling from the highly acclaimed author of Accidentally Engaged, perfect for fans of Abby Jimenez and Jasmine Guillory. So we already have a book that I'm going to be reading, and I think it was by the book that's a retelling, and this is going to be a retelling. So Kamila Hussein's life might not be perfect, but it's close. She lives a life of comfort, filled with her elaborate Bollywood movie parties, a dog with more Instagram followers than most reality stars, a job she loves, and an endless array of friends who clearly need her help finding love. In fact, Kamila is so busy with her friends' love lives, she's hardly given any thought to her own. Fortunately, Kamila has Rohan Nasser, a longtime friend of the family. He's hugely successful and with deliciously lean, firm body of a rock climber. Only lately, Camilla's nameless, harmless flirting with Rohan is making her insides do a little Bhangra dance. Bhangra? I think it's Bhangra dance. But between planning the local shelter's puppy prom, throwing a huge work event, and proving to everyone that she's got it all figured out, Kamila isn't letting herself get distracted until her secret nemesis returns to town with an eye for Rohan. Suddenly, it seems like the more Kamila tries to plan, the more things are starting to unravel, and her perfectly ordered life is about to be turned upside down. That looks really good. That is by Fervor by Grand Central Publishing, which means that's one I'm going to be getting as a print art. Okay, now this one here is by Roy Johansen and a foreword by his mother, Iris Johansen. It's a Kendra Michaels story, which previous till now, Roy Johansen and Iris Johansen wrote these stories together. So let's read about it. This one, by the way, will be out in a few days on March 8th. It says New York Times bestselling author Roy Johansen delivers a thriller-minute read featuring a fearless heroine for hire. Kendra Michaels, blind before gaining her sight via a revolutionary surgical procedure, offers her razor-sharp senses to assist her friend Jessie Mercado in a baffling case. An Army vet and former bodyguard for the rich and famous, Jessie has faced all kinds of danger. Jessie has been in previous Kendra Michaels books. As it says, Jessie has faced all kinds of danger, but one thing the motorcycle-riding private investigator has never encountered before is an incarceration consultant. Preparing wealthy people to go to prison is big business. When Owen Blake of Mamertime Consulting hires Mikado to find his missing partner, their suspect list is filled with recently white-collar criminals, a few drug kingpins, and a couple of murderers to keep things interesting. As witnesses turn up dead and car chases leave destruction in their wake, Jesse and Kendra learn just how far someone will go to keep the fate of one man hidden. But why? Together they must hunt down the lethal secrets of Blake's company, hell-bent on staying one step ahead of disaster. I should have looked at it before I moved it. Okay, just one more. Just maybe two more. The next one is Somebody's Home by Neruda. And this is a Thomas and Mercer book, and it's general fiction or mystery thrillers. It says, a quiet neighborhood, a lovely home, a promising new beginning. In a heartbeat, everything can change in this propulsive novel of suspense by USA Today bestselling author Neruda. Julie Jones has left her suffocating marriage. With her teenage daughter, Jess, she's starting over. Their new house in Oceanside is the first step towards a new life, even if it does come with the unexpected. The previous owners, a pastor and his wife, have left something, or rather someone, behind. Tom Dean has a bitter hatred for the father who considers him a lost cause, and for the woman who's moved into their family's house, the only home he's ever known. He's never going to leave. She'll think he'll be gone in 3 days, but Tom has the perfect plan. For a newly single mother and their daughter, a fresh start in the beginning of a nightmare. Before the weekend is over, somebody's going to get exactly what they deserve. That looks really, really good. And last, did I say when that one is out? That one I believe I said, oh, that one's already out. It came out January 18th. And then the last one I want to talk about comes out on May 3rd, and this is Magpie by Elizabeth Day. And this is another mystery thriller. And it starts off, it says, she has almost everything. The rest she'll take. For fans of Gone Girl and The Perfect Nanny, a taut psychological thriller suspense novel about a perfect couple and their seemingly perfect roommate. That is, until she threatens to destroy everything they've worked so hard to create. Marissa and Jake are the perfect couple, and Kate, the new lodger, is the perfect roommate. And not just because her rent payments will give them the income they need to start trying for a baby of their dreams. Except, no one is truly perfect. Sure, Kate doesn't seem to care much about personal boundaries and can occasionally seem overly familiar with Jake, but Marissa doesn't let it concern her, knowing that Kate soon will be gone. And it will be just her, Jake, and their future baby. Conceiving a baby is easier said than done. And Jake and Marissa's perfect relationship is put to the test through months of infertility treatments and false starts. To make matters worse, Kate's boundary pushing turns into all-out obsession with Jake, with Marissa, and with their future child. Who is this woman? Why does she seem to know everything about Marissa and Jake? In her quest to find out who Kate really is, Marissa might destroy everything she's worked so hard to create, her perfect romance, her perfect family, and her perfect self. Jake doesn't know the half of what Marissa has created and what she stands to lose. So that looks really, really good. A very tension-filled book. And I believe I have covered all of the books that I want to read. So I am going to edit this, incorporate the book covers, and also I will put timestamps in the description box below. So I'm going to ask you to do two things. Look at the description box below so that you can see the timestamps. But please like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.